Welcome to the Josh Button Podcast, where we discuss health, wellness, and outliers from society. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Josh Button Podcast, episode 82. And today I'm joined by Dr. Meline. Great Shooter Health. That's your website. You've got a couple books out. The one that I'm most familiar with is Lies Exposed. That is the truth about dieting, supplementation, weight loss, and exercise. All super prevalent information to be sharing with the masses, especially in the United States and the West. Tell me, sir, how did you get into, focusing on the lies, the myths, and helping people understand what's really going on about health? Tell me about your practice and what made you write the book in the first place.
Okay. Well, it all started about 50 years ago. I was in the military. I was pretty out of shape. I was pretty overweight, smoking. I was in pretty bad shape. I just couldn't stand being that way. So I thought, I got to do something about this. So I quit smoking. Took a long time to quit smoking. But I quit smoking. I got some information on exercising and things like that. I decided that I wanted to lift weights because I admired people who were strong and in good shape. And I thought, well, I'll lift weights to exercise. And then what do I eat? So I started looking into diets, what weightlifters eat, and started tailoring my diet after that. And then I got interested in some nutrition. I thought, well, get some nutrition information going here and figure all this out. Well, I've followed this along for years. And actually, after not too long of a time, I decided I would get into bodybuilding. So I started following their diets and their routines and all of this. And of course, their diets are comprised of a lot of supplements. And even back then, this is well before the 94 thing with the Congress where they allowed people to make anything that they wanted to call it, So there's a limited number of supplements, but there's still a lot of them. Mostly vitamins, minerals, protein supplements, and things like that. So I followed along, and after a few years, I noticed that I couldn't always afford these supplements. So I noticed that during the time that I wasn't using the supplements and the time that I was using the supplements, I didn't really notice any difference. Couldn't tell any difference in strength. I couldn't tell any difference in anything. So what's going on here? Am I using the wrong supplements? Am I doing the routine wrong? Am I, what's wrong? Why aren't I getting these benefits? And so I started digging into that. And I never really found any answers at that point. And I got a chance to go to med school. So I thought, this is great. Med school is going to do it for me. They're going to tell me all this information. They're going to teach me about physiology and nutrition and everything. I'm going to figure this all out. Well, they didn't. It was very disappointing. They didn't teach us really anything about nutrition and just the physiology we needed to get through our classes. So that was very disappointing. So basically, it left me on my own to research what's going on here. And I'd done some research before. I knew how to do research and stuff. It was just, where's this going? So I started really digging into it. And I went through hundreds and thousands of articles and different things. And what I finally concluded was that the supplements really, if you had a well-balanced diet, the supplements did nothing for you because everything that you needed was in your diet. And adding the supplements didn't do anything. So then I started thinking about, I would like to write a book or something and provide some information so people can figure this out. So they'll have the information they need to show, well, these supplements really aren't beneficial for you unless you're deficient in something. And so I kind of started down that road. And then I figured that I wasn't going to be able to do much good with that because there's just too many supplements out there. And if you're going to go through and debunk a supplement, it doesn't include all of them. And so I thought, well, the best thing I can do then is write a book just to educate people. What's the truth? What's the truth about physiology? What's the truth about medicine? What's the truth about medications? What's the truth about this stuff? So I wrote that, and then, so now what are you going to do? You got this information. You know what's good and what's bad, what's true and what's false. What are you going to do with it? And so I devised a little plan, and it works for anybody. It's very easy to do, but it involves a little bit of effort on your part and time. But I wrote it in the book description of, okay, now you have all this information. How are you going to use it? And so I go through a scenario of applying that information and being able to make yourself nutritionally healthy. It's also has to do with weight loss too. The real catch there is if you eat well and become nutritionally healthy, you'll lose weight automatically. And you'll get down to a point to where you're sustaining the weight that you're eating for. So however many calories you're eating at that point, once you've switched your diet over and you're now eating more healthy diet. And this can take months, and your people think, oh no, when they get on these diet plans, they expect you to switch overnight. They expect you to, okay, this is what you're doing, this is what you're going to do. Switch over 6 months, you're going to be the self that you've always wanted, and it's just not reality. So you don't switch over to anything with the plan that I have. You gradually migrate your diet from the poor diet that you're eating into a healthy diet that you should be eating. But once you've done that, and you'll lose a lot of weight if you're very heavy, to whatever calories you're eating, you'll drop down to where you're on that maintenance level. So in order to lose more weight, you got to lose more calories. So there's ways to do that because there's lots of nutritious foods that are high calorie. You just need to learn to cut more of those high calorie foods out of your diet, eat more lower calorie nutritious foods. And once you balance that out, that you'll keep losing weight until you get down to the weight you want. The nice thing is once you reach that point, you're there. You're already eating the way you should be eating. You're eating foods that you like, because if you don't eat foods that you like, you'll never maintain any diet. I don't care what diet it is. If you don't like the foods you're eating, you won't maintain it because you're always going to be attracted to those foods that you really like. So what you have to do, and this is part of the migration process, is you learn to eat healthy foods that you like. And eventually you will have migrated your diet, eliminated all the poor nutritious foods out of your diet, incorporated all healthy diet foods in a nice cross section of the food groups so that you're eating a balanced, healthy diet. And there you are. So once you've arrived, you've arrived. There's nothing else to change. There's nothing else to do. So I wrote this all down in the book and I published it. People embrace it, but what I found was that people have a hard time really implementing the plan. It's easy to do, but it takes some conscious effort. Maybe in the book's only 200 pages. So in that amount of space, you can't really educate somebody on how to fully implement the diet and answer all their questions. So I thought, well, if I'm going to make all this effort worthwhile, that I've put years and years of effort into learning all this stuff and figuring it out and doing this, that I need to provide some kind of a support group to help people once they start doing this process to help them um, implement it and make it effective. Because once they get it down, they don't need me. They don't need anybody else. They've got it down. They can do it on their own. But getting there does take some help. Some people can do it on their own, and a few people have. A lot more people need some kind of help. On this coaching website that I developed, first I took the book and I expanded it out and I made it into a series of videos. And I think people are more in tune to videos and that kind of interaction than they are to reading a book. And then I made it so that they can have different levels of access. If they just need a little bit of help, then we have a group Zoom meetings that we do every week that we can talk about how you're doing, what's happening with what you're doing, answer your questions, give you some hints and how to continue on and keep progressing. And then there's some people who just need a lot of hand holding. And so there's individual coaching. That's where the book's at, and that's where the website's at, and that's kind of how it came about.
So when you were back in the bodybuilding days, did you notice that your body was acclimating to the calories you were taking in at that point as well? So if you wanted to be a bigger person, then you had to eat like a bigger person?
Yeah, yeah. I followed their diets really closely because you're looking at Schwarzenegger. That's back in his day. You're looking at those guys like that. What do they eat? How much do they eat? And so forth. And
6 chicken breasts
then
a
you
day
ran
and a
into,
bunch of eggs and all the other, like,
all the guys. I'd eat a dozen eggs every morning for breakfast.
so
Yeah, so I just kind of followed along their examples, and you're running into people in the gym, and there's some pretty big people in the gym. What are they doing? What supplements they taking? What's their diet like? And all those things.
so when you're working with people now and they first come in and they start to realize that they can eat foods that they enjoy, do you actually suggest and recommend that they cut out anything specifically? Like, just cut it out,
Well,
just
what they
get
need
away from it?
Well, they got to get rid of the low nutritious, the high calorie, low nutrition foods. And basically, if you look at what's a really healthy diet composed of, well, if you back up far enough, when the food pyramids first came out, it wasn't the American who came up with a food pyramid. I forget which country it was, but they come up with this food pyramid. Took foods and they separated them into their commonality. So if you take cereal grains, and there's thousands of cereal grains, the ones we're most familiar with is wheat, oats, rye, rice, and things. There's thousands of species of rice. They're all cereal grains, and they all share a commonality in nutrition and other things. Then you get into vegetables, and vegetables all share a commonality. And within the vegetable groups, there's different groups. So you have your green leafy vegetables, you have squash, you have tomatoes, and there's different groups with different level of carbohydrates, nutrition components. But basically, the vegetables all provide a certain level of nutrition and other components. And then you get into fruits. Fruits are the same thing. So they divided these into basically 5 different groups. So you have cereal grains, you have vegetables, you have fruits, you have a protein group, which includes eggs, and then a dairy group. And they put it in a pyramid because the pyramid represents the volume that you should eat from each one of these food groups. So you shouldn't, if you're eating from these 5 food groups, dairy shouldn't be your primary source of calories and things. Cereal grains are usually on the bottom, and cereal grains are on the bottom because they have a lot of carbohydrates. And so for a working person who needs these carbohydrates, that's where you should put the cereal grains. If you're like me and the only really exercise I get is working out. So I don't need that many calories. I don't need all the volume of the calories from these cereal grains. So I move them up a notch or two. So the bottom of my pyramid is vegetables, fruits, and cereal grains and fruits are kind of in that same level of category. And then, of course, protein, and that can be meat, eggs, or whatever, eat a variety in there, and then the dairy.
So what are your thoughts on the elimination diets that have been the most popular as of late? Let's say carnivore and things that are trying to eliminate the processed junk that none of us should probably be eating in the first place, but also eliminating certain things like vegetables because of anti-nutrients or any toxicity that they might provide.
Yeah, that's a lot of controversy, but it's a lot of things that we can't do a lot about. So don't worry about the things you can't do anything about. Worry about the things you can do something about. Uh, if you if you eliminate any food group, you're eliminating some components that aren't contained in the other food groups. That's why they're divided into food groups. So if you start eliminating a food group, you're missing some nutritional components that you're not going to get anywhere else. And you can try to supplement them. We start talking about supplementation and vitamins and all. That's a whole new ballgame. So the elimination diets, first off, I mentioned the food groups, but now we're talking about unprocessed foods, raw foods, and minimally processed foods. And so anything that's beyond that is stripping nutrition from it. So you got what is termed, and people try to vary what they call these things. Yes, processed foods and super processed foods. So processing entails anything that you do to the food other than just take it and eat it. So stuff like cereal grains, you really can't eat cereal grains. And cereal grains actually includes things like beans and things like that fit into the cereal grains group. You really can't eat those foods without cooking them in some fashion. You just don't get a handful of beans and pop them in your mouth and eat them, or wheat or anything else. But that's good because there's other chemicals in there that really kind of interact with our digestive tract. And if you get large amounts of these, there's large amounts of these chemicals in the food group, it can be very upsetting to your GI tract. So fortunately, these foods have to be processed somewhat. They have to be cooked to some degree in order to eat them. And in doing that, that destroys these other chemicals or makes them inactive so they don't cause problems. So if you take wheat and you just eat it, you probably get an upset stomach. You grind it into flour, make bread out of it, cook the bread, that destroys these, you eat it, it's fine.
So, what do you feel about gluten and anything that's happening to the crops themselves before they're processed?
Well, if you're talking, you can talk different levels of fertilizers or
Glyphosate,
pesticide.
yeah, pesticides.
I mean, we can't get away from probably a lot of foods with pesticides and commercial fertilizers and things like that. Excuse me, because they just can't grow enough crops without doing this and have enough food for everybody. Now, they've gone to great lengths to wheat has a problem of getting rust in it. So they've gone to great lengths of developing um, different types of wheat that are resistant to rust.
GMOs.
Yeah, people really shy away from GMOs because they think the GMOs are start in a laboratory and you make this genetic material and then it grows whatever plant it. But GMOs aren't that. They've advanced the science far enough that they can. Excuse me. Take a quick drink here, just keeps my throat a little better. They've developed the GMO or the genetic process where they can identify the individual genes that perform different functions within the genome, within the process, within the plant or animal, whatever it is. And then they work with those specific genes. And I don't know of the process in minute detail, but they take that genome and they splice in a different gene in that location. And then if they can get that plant to, or that seed to grow and produce more seeds, then they've effectively added that characteristic to that plant, or they've taken out an undesirable characteristic. The way that had to be done before, if you look at GMO, it's been done for a very long time, just with different techniques. So before they would crossbreed. So you'd find a species of wheat that was more resistant to the rust, and then you would cross it with other strains, and then you would come up with a plant, and eventually you could get the right gene combination that you wanted, and it would work. It's a very time-consuming process, takes many, many, many cycles, and the thing you can't get away from is there's negative genes in there. They keep getting mixed in. So you have to put up with a certain number of undesirable genes to get the desirable genes that you want. With the GMO process that they're doing now, you don't have to worry about those undesirable genes because you're only playing with the genes that you want to modify. And once they get those modified, then they got a great product that is essentially the same as the old one, but now has better characteristics. Now, all GMOs aren't made the same.
Right.
So if they do something terrible to a plant or something, when it grows, it's not going to look right. And it's not going to taste right. They may lose some of its nutritional values. So people just aren't going to buy it, and people aren't going to eat it. So that's kind of self-eliminating on a lot of those. And you can stick with non-GMOs. I mean, just stick with like you go in to buy fruits. There's 50 varieties of apples, but you don't have to buy the new state-of-the-art ones. Buy the old ones. Buy the old varieties, and stick with them if you're afraid of the GMOs. And one thing you can't do much about is like things like cereal grains. When you buy bread, you can't really control what wheat they've used to make that bread. But we would get into a lot deeper into the processed foods. But basically, bread is very bad for you, just regular bread. And the reason it's bad is years ago, back in the 1800s, they developed a process where they could separate the components of the wheat. So they could take out the germ and the endosperm and everything. They could separate these out. And they found that when you did this, the endosperm has made a very fine white flour that is very sweet, kind of very popular, very popular. In doing so, they took most of the nutrition away from wheat. What people don't realize, yeah, this was popular. People bought it like crazy, but they actually developed some vitamin deficiencies because of that, because they were eliminating the nutrition. It took them clear till about the 30s before they figured out what they were eliminating was this process. Well, now they've fortified it. So now you can't buy flour or wheat, things like, anything that's been ground, been processed, milled, has been fortified.
Which is in itself inorganic.
Well, it's synthetic in that they
Iron
didn't
from the
isolate the vitamins and minerals that they took out of the wheat and put it back in. They made synthetic products and put it back in. And then there's what they've identified these a certain number of components, but what have they not put back in there that they took out? So when you buy regular,
Don't we even have an issue with the fortification itself contributing to heavy metal toxicity?
it could, yeah, depending on the process they use and stuff. There's a lot of controversy around all of that. That makes it very difficult to, if you're talking about the cereal grains group, what do people mostly get their nutrition from cereal grains? Well, bread, because most people don't eat hot cereal. And if you eat cold cereal, you just as well, and I've heard people talk about this for years, you just well eat the box as eat the cereal because it has about the same level of nutrition. And that's pretty much true. So cold cereals are out. Most people don't like hot cereals. And you even have to be careful with hot cereals because the way they process them, they still remove components from the hot cereal. So if you can eat something just straight up, like buckwheat, you can buy that unprocessed. You can buy cracked wheat, which has very minimal processing. Even rolled oats, you'd think, okay, just take some oats, you run them through a roller and it smashes them out. They even modify that. They take components out of that and do things to it so that it's instant oats and things like that. But you can still get good rolled oats. You can still get cracked wheat. You can still get unprocessed stuff like buckwheat.
Ancient grains.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of them out there. And then you get into rice. Like I said, there's thousands of species of rice. But if you look at them, what have they done? They've taken the hull off of white rice so that it'll cook instantly and it fluffs up and it's nice and soft and everything, but they stripped away nutrition again.
And they're also
So if you're gonna eat
fortifying
rice,
rice.
yeah, just eat whole grain rice, something that's not been modified at all, just the rice, and put up with it taking 45 minutes to an hour to cook, and you get your nutrition that way.
So are you a fan of sourdough and processing good flour?
Well, I love sourdough bread. The problem is you're making it with flour that is not
Right.
the best.
You got to select the
So
flour carefully.
yeah, I mean, I eat a few things that they're not the best nutrition, but they're not a big part of my diet. So like I said, I love sourdough bread, but I don't eat it all the time. I'll get some a loaf here and there and eat it over a period of time, and it's great stuff. But if you're trying to maximize your nutrition, you've got to learn to eliminate things that are unhealthy and substitute things that you do like in that group that are healthy. So when I talked about this migration, you can't just eat things that you like now, and because you can't, there's a lot of stuff that you eat that's not healthy, and there's no way that you can make that healthy. So the idea is to eliminate that from your diet, to substitute something that's in that same group that is healthy that you like. And you say, well, okay, what's healthy? Well, I talk about that a lot in the book and the coaching stuff. What constitutes something healthy? And it's really easy to do that, but it takes a little time. These programs where, you're going to lose 50 pounds in 3 months and you're going to look great and you're going to feel great. No, that's not reality. And if somebody says that you can lose a pound a day, that's not going to happen. It's impossible. There's a lot of fallacies, a lot of lies out there, a lot of deception, a lot of things that have been around for so long that people have accepted them as true. Just say, "Oh, yeah, this has got to be true." And if you look, if when you dig into the diet programs and you dig into these other things, you can see these fallacies are just rampant. And even in the medical community, there's a lot of things that have been adopted as true in medicine that are not true. And it just goes on and on from there.
So your coaching in itself is really, it's coaching lifestyle changes. Like if we're looking at the normal basis of the population in the US or the West right now, we can agree that their lifestyles are not healthy lifestyles. Their nutritional intake is not a healthy nutritional intake. And it will kind of, regardless of what we would like to propose, going to take some changes, no matter whether or not you're going to
Yeah.
change something small on day one and gradually get to where you are going to be to get to the goals that you want to achieve. You're going to have to give some of these things up, eliminate some of these things, change your lifestyle. And it's a process in itself.
Yeah, it has to. There's no way that you can take something that is completely unhealthy. You can't take potato chips. No matter what you do to them, they are never going to be healthy. So if you're eating a lot of stuff, foods like that, and that's potato chips are considered super processed food. There's just no nutritional value. There's negative nutrition in potato chips. So if you're eating a lot of those, you've got to get them out of your diet. Now, I relate it to smoking. If you're smoking 5 packs of cigarettes a day, it's unlikely that you're going to stop overnight. Or if you're an alcoholic and you drink a fifth of whiskey a day, you're probably not just going to stop cold turkey and all of a sudden start eating a healthy diet. That's just not realistic. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress that goes along with eating food. And people eat a lot of food, there's comfort foods. But people, when they get stressed or whatever, they'll turn to a certain food and they eat that. That gives them some relief. But most of those foods are not healthy. So how are you going to break that habit? How are you going to get away from these non-healthy foods and get into a point where you're eating healthy foods? But I think it's just like trying to stop smoking or something like that. The only difference is you don't have to smoke. So you can get rid of it and it's gone. But you do have to eat. And so you can't just say, well, I'm not going to eat that anymore. Well, where are you going to go? So slowly but surely, you just pick one thing that you need to eliminate out of your diet. And maybe you want to start with snacks first because people like to snack. And they usually don't snack on things that are healthy and there are a lot of calories. So if you're trying to lose weight, snacking is probably the one place that you can attack right away and start losing some calories.
Then you like might move on to sugary drinks like sodas and all the other things, and then just go one by one.
Yeah, just one thing at a time. Depends on how well you handle a lot of change. Like I said, you could do one thing. You can take, okay, I'm gonna start working on getting rid of sodas. And you could work on that for however long it takes you, month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. Just get sodas out of your diet and then move on to something else. And that doing it that way would take you a very long time to migrate your diet from a healthy diet or from a poorly healthy diet to a healthy diet. But you can work on several things. You say, okay, I'm work on sodas. And then I eat a lot of I eat a lot of bread. So I'm gonna start working on eating it. And there's breads out there that have, they throw in some whole grains and some nuts and seeds and things. Those are a little more healthy, but they're still the basis is the white flour. But you can start working on several things. Just depends on how well you can handle that stress, how motivated you are to make changes. When you look at things you have to change, well, it depends on how many snacks you have. You might have 2 snacks, 5 snacks. Who knows how many snacks you have that you want to work on. But you basically have 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What do you eat for those 3 meals that is not healthy that you want to change? So let's say that you need to get rid of a lot of calories and you love lasagna or spaghetti or whatever, and you eat it 3 or 4 times a week. Well, that's a good place to start on something. And so you can start, you don't have to just eliminate it, say, okay, lasagna is out the door. No, you're not going to throw away your favorite food. But what you can do is take a smaller portion of it. Say, okay, I'm going to have lasagna, but I'm also going to have something else in there. You look at lasagna, what are you eliminating there? You've got cereal grains because you got the noodles, and then you've got some vegetables because you got the sauce. You got a protein group because you've got the meat or whatever else is in there. So you got several groups that are represented by that lasagna. What are you going to replace that with? Well, you might say, well, I don't need a lot of protein or meat, so I'm going to substitute that with a piece of meat of some kind. So I'm going to have a smaller portion of pasta with a piece of meat. And what's that meat can be? Well, it could be any meat. It could be fish, it could be beef, it could be pork, it could be chicken. You decide. And just because you make a substitution and you eliminate that doesn't mean that you're going to stick with all those substitutions. Maybe you just substitute it for something that's a little less unhealthy. And then later on, you'll replace that with something that's more healthy than that. See, it's a process, it's a migration. It's one step at a time.
Do you encounter individuals that kind of want to go full bore, maybe want to do something that's extreme, want to challenge themselves because they've had maybe
You
a
can,
poor health event or had some kind of wake up call that was traumatizing to them or just quite awakening for
yeah.
some reason?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. There's the full range. You got people who just want to completely jump in there full board, just completely change everything all at once, and the people who struggle to make changes because they're not good at eliminating habits. But it's a process, and the people have to learn it's a process. The one thing that really gets me about the medical community is they've given up on reality. So the reality is you are what you eat. If you eat garbage, you're going to be overweight, you're going to be nutritionally unhealthy, you're going to have all kinds of health problems and everything else. That's just a reality. It seems like the medical community, there's all kinds of diet programs and things out there for people trying to get into your wallet and get your money to help you lose weight or whatever. But the medical community kind of bought into those programs somewhat. Okay, well, you need to start this diet and you need to exercise and you need to do these things. But you go in for a visit and you talk to them about it. Okay, you need to start doing this and we'll see you next month. Well, then they come back, well, how you doing? Well, I made some changes and stuff. Well, did they? You know, I know guys that were working with obese people in their clinics, and one said that he was had somebody come in for a clinic visit, and they says, well, how you doing? You eliminated your fast foods? Oh, yeah, don't eat fast foods anymore and everything. So he leaves, and he stops by one of the fast food places to pick up something on the way, and there they are. Yeah, so you can't get people to make these big changes on their own. They just can't. They have to have some hand-holding. They have to have some real education. That you can't just tell somebody, well, eat healthy. Okay, what's that mean? Eat fruits and vegetables. Okay, fine. I eat fruits and vegetables, but I also eat 3 bags of potato chips and, 12 pack of soda and a carton of ice cream. Okay. So how are you really going to educate these people? How are you really going to help them by just telling them, eat fruits and vegetables, go to the gym and exercise, and come back and see me next month? That doesn't work. And so after years of doing this, the medical community finally comes out and says, well, this is a multifaceted problem, which it is. It's not the ones that are looking at it. They say, obese people can't help it. It's not their fault. Well, whose fault is it? What they're telling those people when they do that, when they say that to those people, it's really doing a huge disservice because they're telling them that their body is making um,
Choices for them.
mass, they're fat without eating anything. So what they're telling them is no matter what you do, I'm sorry, no matter what you do, you're going to be fat. So we're working on a way to help you with that. We're working on some medication that's going to help you with that.
GLP-1s.
Yeah. Oh, that's horrible. That's what they're telling them. Well, that's a big lie
Let's touch
because,
on that for a second, because
okay,
not many people will come on and say that's horrible. I want to go one step behind it. Did this only come about because people so readily accepted things like statins and other pharmaceutical interventions for their blood work, for their nutrition, for the poor choices that they were making, that they didn't want to take the blame for them, or they didn't want to tell them that they needed to change their lifestyle? And GLP-1s, now that people have adopted this short-term quick answer fix, and we see what's the fallout for a lot of people is, you just said it's horrible. I know plenty of doctors that have not quite come to that stage of this is horrible. They're still easily and readily recommending it. So what do we do for these people?
okay, this is the problem with medicine. Doctors are only trained to treat things. When you come to a physician, the premise is that your body has failed in some aspect. And now it's failed because it can't correct itself, but they can give you some medication that will correct it. And people have become accustomed to this kind of idea. So the assumption is that you must be eating a healthy diet because if you back up a little bit, how do you know if somebody's healthy? There's no way to assess health, to really know true health. What they do is um, they assess whether or not you have signs of disease. And if you have signs of disease, then it's assumed that, well, you're eating healthily or eating healthily enough. Your body must be failing in some aspect. And so now we have these drugs and things that we can use to push your body back into its equilibrium, back to where it should be.
Which we're only finding by diagnostics, correct?
Right.
And the failure of diagnostics, I mean, if we're not questioning them at this point in time, we probably never will, but there is a large part of the community that does question them in themselves, whether it be blood work, whether it be your cholesterol numbers and the things that we have predisposed or have answers for and we're solving for people when it's not really a problem in the first place.
Exactly. So cholesterol is a big, huge thing too, and that's a whole story all on its own. Huge debacles, I think, in the medical community because these people aren't healthy. And they come to the physician, yeah, their body's failing. It's failing because of their nutritional state, not because the body's failing because it had something go wrong and now it can't correct itself. So at least I would say 90% of medical problems can be fixed with diet. You get a good, nutritious, healthy diet, problems go away. And so that's not the medical environment. You go to the doctor and he suspects or assumes that you're eating healthily enough that your body's actually failing. And so now he's going to try to come up with a medical solution to fix that problem. And so people expect it. So when you go to the doctor, you don't go to the doctor to have him tell you, you know what, your diet really sucks. What do you eat? And then, oh, your diet really sucks. What you need to do is eat better. People don't go to the doctor for that. They go to the doctor to get some medication to fix the problem. And they expect it. Physicians dish it out. Patients expect it. And so that's where we've gone to.
Is that broken in the essence of the grand scheme fixable? Is there any solution to that?
Well, it is fixable, but what people have to do is start embracing reality.
Doctors
You're
and
talking
patients or
about
just patients?
no physicians and patients. Everybody's got to face reality. But you've got this huge community out there of physicians that are being taught by these experts who know all this information, so they're passing it on to you. And another thing people don't realize is physicians, where does this information come from that physicians use for knowledge?
Pharmaceuticals.
Well, there's a few people out there doing research. When they find something and they can kind of prove that this is the way it is, then they pass that information down. And that information gets used by then the practicing physician group.
And
But
you're
a
referring
lot
to
of this,
studies. And these studies that which we're finding more and more and more have been corrupted, have been funded, have been rooted in failure from the get-go because of what they were trying to achieve by the studies. So much of
well, and you can,
the literature is wrong now at this point. So are we looking at a system
well,
that is beyond
it's not beyond repair, but it would take a lot of people buying into reality. So this is the problem you have. Okay, they do this research on GLP-1s. Does it help people lose weight? Is it beneficial in that regard? Yes, it is. And if your study is designed to show that it has this effect, then you're going to get a positive outcome. They say, wow, look at this. This group that was on GLP-1s, they lost a lot more weight than the people who were using nothing. Yeah, and they're valid studies. And they're even can be double-blinded placebo. They're great studies, but they're studying the wrong thing. You can virtually get the outcome to be whatever you want, depending on how you base your study. And you can do, like I said, great studies and come up with just totally useless results. So what's wrong with this GLP-1 this whole thing with the medications and the studies coming out and all this stuff? Well, the problem is GLP-1s have some effect in helping people lose weight. It has horrible side effects. Just they haven't even discovered half of the side effects, and some of them are pretty horrible. And although these side effects are pretty rare, you can be the lucky lottery winner, and you take that medicine, and that happens to you, like you lose your eyesight or something. The other thing is, you take these GLP-1s, you're not just going to lose weight. It says that you lose weight because it suppresses your appetite. Well, a lot of people, if you just told them, okay, here's this medication that's going to suppress your appetite, they'll quit eating just because they think they're not hungry because they're taking this medicine, so they don't need to eat. And it's not doing anything for them. You can give them a sugar pill and they'll cut back on their eating just because they think this placebo effect. So these people on the GLP-1s, they're doing this, and yeah, it's effective, but what makes it effective? Well, they don't eat as much. And is it because they're not as hungry? Maybe. But the point is, they still have to eat less food to lose the weight. And then, so they lose the weight. Now what do? Well, they've lost the weight not eating good nutritious food. They've lost the weight eating the junk that they've been accustomed to and been eating for a long time. So what have they gained? Well, they've lost weight, but now they may have caused themselves more problems. And one of the big concerns with the GLP-1s, and it's for that very reason, just the nutritional value hasn't changed, is protein loss, muscle loss. And that's a big issue with them. But the thing that makes it a debacle, that makes it just horrible, is that's not the right approach to losing weight. You have to eat less to lose weight. And the medical community professing that, oh man, your genes are causing you to be fat. There's nothing you can do about it. That is a huge disservice to the population because it is their fault in that they're eating the calories, but it's not their fault because they've been groomed by society and advertisements and everything else that these foods are okay. Now look at this snack bar. It's got all this protein and stuff in it. It's great for you. No, it's not. Oh, it's got a couple things in there that's good for you. The rest of it is counteracting any nutritional value of the other good things in that protein bar or whatever it is. So the study's valid in that GLP can have that effect, but it's negating the fact that you still have to eat less than what you're eating. And it doesn't say anything about eating more nutritiously.
Right.
What's happening to your nutritional health? And so that's the problem with GLP-1. Any drug used to lose weight, that's the problem.
Yeah, you can have a cascading effect that's not very, very visible as long as you're just watching the scale number go down. Then you're not watching what your
Exactly.
brain deterioration or organ deterioration or any of the other really plausible
Yep.
scenarios is going on.
Exactly. The other thing they add in with this is exercise. Now, exercise is absolutely unnecessary for losing weight. It's absolutely not necessary at all for losing weight. You can lose weight laying on the couch. Or a good way to lose weight, but you can lose weight laying on the couch. If you go to the gym in the nutritionally poor state that you're in now, and you go there and your body's already suffering because of your nutritional state, and you go there and you demand more of it, you're making your nutritional state even worse. So yeah, you might burn a few extra calories, but the amount of calories that people burn at the gym is just minuscule
Yeah,
compared to what they're eating.
it's very easily
So
offset by
you,
eating something junk.
oh yeah, yeah. So it's pretty worthless to try to use exercise for weight loss. Now, is exercise important? Yes, it's very important for good health. It's what I call physiological health. Yeah, it's absolutely necessary to optimize your health, your physiological health. But what else do you need besides exercise? You need nutritional health. So you need to work on nutritional health first. And then when you get your nutritional health improving, then start working on exercise. And people go about exercise completely wrong. You don't go to the gym doing nothing and then start doing this intense 2-hour workout. It just doesn't work. In my book, I found it on the internet and I couldn't find the author source, so I couldn't to give them credit for it. But it describes perfectly someone going to the gym, getting a trainer, and it was actually a gift given to them. And they're so excited to go to the gym and be with this trainer. Now they're going to get in all the shape. But after the trainer beats them up for a few days, it just their attitude and everything just changes. And it's perfect because that is exactly what happens. Every year, around the first of the year, people come into the gym and the gym gets noticeably crowded because these New Year's resolutions people are in there. Well, it takes them about 3 weeks before they burn themselves out and they're gone. And the gym's back to the normal group of people. And it usually takes these people 2 or 3 years before they can build up the courage to come back and try it again. So it's a big psychological game. It can go from anything from not being able to make yourself go to the gym to be able to have to go to the gym and not be able to make yourself not go to the gym if you do it right. But you have to do it right. It becomes I don't want to say you become a junkie on the high of exercise, stuff like that. And I really don't think that's true. I hate to exercise,
You don't like the
truthfully.
physiological response of a good session?
Oh, I love it. No, I didn't say I didn't like the response. I hate to exercise. So people would say, "Oh man, I just can't go to the." I hate to exercise, but the thing is, when you go to the gym and you start doing that, you start feeling better, you start getting some muscle tone and all these things. pretty soon you can't not go to the gym. I go to the gym. I used to work out 3 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I hit it hard. I had never seen people work hard enough in the gym. They really lay back. I hit hard, really hard, and it's not fun.
You had a
It's not fun to go in.
but you had a strong why.
Yeah, but you go in there and you do it. You go in there and you bench 3 or 400 pounds. You do all this stuff. It's a high.
Do you know what your
You can tell the endorphins.
do you know what your motivation was for it at the time?
Well, I just started, like I said, I started back there. I just wanted to tone up and lose some weight and being better.
You didn't have an ideal, you didn't have a specimen or Arnold Schwarzenegger or a body type that you wanted to achieve?
No, when I first looked at those guys and looked at myself and then looked at the pictures of those guys, there's no way that I'm ever going to look like that. And then as I started exercising, said, wow, I'm starting to, what taught me to switch over from weightlifting to bodybuilding was that.
So how important is it, since we're touching on it, for the people that come to work with you to believe that there's something that they're working towards that they really want, something that they believe that they can achieve, and sticking with the process because of that why in itself?
Well, I think there's a big difference. If you're talking about diet and nutrition,
It's not
that's
easy to
something
put
that
a
we deal
Snickers
with.
down.
What's
It's
that?
not easy to put a Snickers down when you're eating one
No, it
every day.
isn't.
It's not easy to put away sodas when that's your mainstay. I mean, if you don't have some real good incentive for changing your lifestyle in these ways, even if it's a little increment at a time, it's still change. It's
Yeah.
still
Well, the motivation is these people are usually extremely out of shape. They're obese to certain different levels, and they're really tired of being like that. And because when I start people out on the process, I don't start them out on the diet right away. I run them through a few hours of videos of education that talk on a lot of different aspects: medicine, physiology, nutrition, that talk about a lot of things. Because there's a lot involved in doing that. And one thing that people never talk about is, okay, I'm going to start on this diet. Okay. Well, what's the rest of your family going to do? Okay. Well, they're not on this diet with you. So what resistance, what flack are you going to get from them that's going to keep you from achieving your goals? And so you got to deal with that. And there's a lot of things that they have to deal with. And now what I do is I invite them to bring their whole family in, or whoever they're living with, whatever, come into this program. And I don't charge them individually for that. If one person is engaged in the program, they're paying for it, then you bring in your family and they can sit in the sessions and do whatever for nothing. Because if they're not in the program, if they're not involved with it, at least understanding what you're trying to do and will help you achieve your goals, even if they're not engaged with it and doing it themselves, you won't succeed because you'll receive so much resistance from everybody else that it'll keep you from achieving your goals. So it's more than just a, change your diet kind of thing. There's a lot involved in it, but it's all easy stuff. It's nothing that requires a lot of gut wrenching things. You do it slowly and gradually to the point where you almost don't notice it, but you want that end result. You want to weigh 100 pounds less. You want to be able to feel good when you get up in the morning. You don't want to have a heart attack in 6 years.
so most of the people you're working with, you're actually tapping into what will happen if they don't make the changes then.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the motivation for even starting out is realizing that, whoa, something's wrong with this picture, and I want to fix it before it becomes really broken.
So like a lot of the things that I've come to find in my own process of getting healthier and healthier and getting into the biohacking world and into the maximization of my performance at my age took things like that that were, uncomfortable, but they provided a result that I was really, really engaged to fulfill and that I really wanted to fulfill. Nobody likes getting in an ice bath. Nobody likes getting an ice bath every day. Nobody likes the feeling
No,
of approaching that, engaging that. But when you feel the results and you see what it does for you on the back end, then you're motivated to continue it.
then you're willing to do it. But yeah, I think you have to have enough satisfaction from it to keep going. The gym is exercise is, I think, one of the hardest things. And if you do it right, like you start off very slowly and work your way into it, by the time that you're working hard and you're to the level that drove these other people out of the gym, you're getting to a point where you're seeing results, you're feeling results, and you want that result. It's not maybe some people enjoy going to the gym. I don't. It's a lot of hard work when you work out like I do. It's a lot of hard work, but I do it because I want the result and I enjoy the result, and that drives me to the gym. You know, if I have to if I'm going out to dinner to a nice restaurant or something, or going to the gym, I'm going to the gym. You know, this other thing can wait. The gym can't. And you get that same way with your diet. When you start eating better and you start feeling better, and and you're making these changes in your life, when you see that soda, you quit seeing that as something that you really crave. You see something that's killing you. You look at that and say, "Whoa, I was drinking that before. No, that stuff's killing me." And, I'm glad I'm away from it. And potato chips, you look at that and you look at all the variety of chips in the grocery store and stuff and say, "How can these people eat all this?" For you, you've come to that understand that that's killing you. That's robbing your body of nutrition and everything else, health, and so as you do that and you start gaining it, then it becomes just the opposite. Instead of like, say, you know, you look at the soda, "Wow, I really want to drink that." You look at it and say, "Really glad I'm away from that stuff."
And I'll go a step
And
further.
so
I'll say that I've said many times to my father specifically when he would say something, "Don't you get sick of eating that same thing over and over again when it's just the nutritionally dense food that I eat, the eggs that I eat every single day? Don't you get sick of eating that?" And I go, "No, I never get sick of feeling great," you know?
yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly.
that is a changeover for a lot of people. I think it does take some time, but when they do realize like, "Wow, I feel so much better," then I never want to engage those things that I know won't allow me to feel good again.
But you gotta get to that point, and if you do it gradually enough and to the point where it's not a huge onerous thing to do it, it's not stressful, it's not causing a lot of anxiety and urge, you know, to fall back, and if you do it very slowly and gradually and purposely, it happens, and it's not that hard to do, it's
So
very easy to do.
real quick, do you offer anything to your patients, to your clients to help them sustain those changes? Do you offer other lifestyle changes, maybe focusing on circadian rhythm or grounding or sunlight exposure, et cetera, turning
Well,
the technology off early in the night? And
I think right now, I'm just focusing on helping people eat more nutritionally healthy, and once you do that, it's very easy to get your weight down to where you want it. And like I said, along the way, without doing anything other than just trying to change your diet and to migrate it to a good, healthy diet, just doing that, they're going to lose a lot of weight if they're very overweight. And then once they hit that end of that migration where they're eating a pretty nutritious diet, they probably haven't hit the end of their, you know, making their diet better yet. They can start making other adjustments to lose more weight and get that down, they get to where they want to be. Once they hit that turnover, it's just like going to the gym. Once you hit that turnover point where you can't keep yourself from going to the gym, these people can't keep themselves from trying to eat better and trying to do better. And that's where that's at.
yes, sir. So you have a great website. You got a couple books people need to read and go check out. Where do they go to find you? And what's your last piece of information for people that are looking for this change?
But people, my website is www.ss-health.com. So a straight shooter health is what it is, but somebody had taken SS health, and so I had to put a dash in there. That's the website. The book, Lies Exposed, is available on Amazon and Barnes& and Noble. If you go to my website, I have a page about the books, links to where you can order it from Barnes& and Noble or Amazon off my website.
Doctor, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for helping people out and
Thanks for having me.
getting the positive message that people can take control of their health and they can regain that life and get their weight back into proper management. And it's not going to take a pharmaceutical. It's not going to take some radical intervention. It just takes dedication and engaging the process.
Yep.
Awesome.
Knowledge and a process to follow.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Lewis. You have a great day.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, you too.